Hello, and you're listening to WITZ, the WITZ, the one place for all things music, art, and entertainment right here in Douglas County, Oregon. I'm your host, Mr. Colin Hurwitz, and thank you for joining us today. This episode is brought to you by 10 Down Bowling, Split Spar and Grill, and a new company, Top It Express. Try them today. Of course, check out Edward Jones for your investing needs, New Visions Eye Care for your spectacle needs, and WITZ Emmett for your investing needs. A lot of great companies right here in Douglas County, Oregon. And of course, the Gene Bechtel School for Music, Spiderking Studios, and the Douglas County Music Association. Thank you so much for being great sponsors. And we're also happy to have your help as well. Let me tell you a little bit about where your money goes. We have three primary missions. One is to create opportunities for performance for Douglas County musicians and anybody who's visiting. Two is to provide scholarships and sponsorships to academics and young professionals. And of course, three is to provide instruments, lessons, and studio space to students in need. And here's the different tier memberships of our program. $300 will make you part of our bronze tier membership. That helps us with instruments and lessons. $500 will make you part of our silver tier, and that helps us get scholarships and sponsorships to students. And $1,000 puts you in the gold tier. That allows us to pay for venues and large performance avenues for our performers. If you're ready to donate today, please go to Venmo at OregonDCMA. And if that doesn't work for you, you can also write a check or bring cash to the Gene Bechtel School for Music, addressed to the Douglas County Music Association or DCMA. And now it's time for some reviews. Yes, everyone, we were kind of off for a few weeks, and the thing is I might have taken a little more time off than I care to admit. When the school year ended for us, it was about the middle of December, I decided, well, you know, it's the holiday season. Let's not work too hard. Let's give everybody a chance to just take some time off, including my team and myself. I certainly needed the break. If you've ever taught class before, you know how much work it takes to make sure little kids do what they're supposed to do. So I was happy to take some time off. My team was grateful. Michael was grateful that I wasn't using his studio every other week to film my show. So just happy to have some time off and take some time for family. But let's get into some reviews. So it's been a while, and I have been basically resting. I have been sitting in my house, sitting in my chair, playing video games, writing in my journal. Just really taking some time, and also taking some time away from the show, away from the nonprofit. Some people donated over the break, and that was fantastic. Try to reach out to our sponsors and try to get them to consider re-upping for this year, and everybody said yes, so we're really happy about that. I want to go on to some reviews about what we're doing for the rest of this year. Now, some of you maybe saw on the Facebook page, my good friend, Mr. Tranter, he posted a poll on what the audience might want. Now, Jake and I were talking about this, and we were thinking, we're probably not gonna get much of a response from this, but we actually got a huge response. At least 45 people responded to the poll, and it looks like a majority of those people want more short form content. And if you're not sure what that is, well, you probably haven't been on YouTube or TikTok or any of these other social media platforms for the last 6 months. So what we're gonna do is we're still gonna launch the entire show. The entire show, the hour-long show with all of the bits, that will be posted on the YouTube channel, so you can go and you can always skip whatever portions you don't want. For our Facebook audience, and by the way, congratulations to our Facebook page for being over 600 members strong. We're at 610 members on the Facebook page. That's crazy. That is amazing, and so thank you, every single one of you who's joined us, and I hope you're enjoying our content, and if you're not, if you don't let us know, then we can't change anything, which is kind of why we put out the poll. We wanted to know what our viewers thought, and I was pleasantly surprised by the response that we got. So we will still film the entire show, but we're gonna make the short form content that you've requested, so each little bit will be released individually over the course of the week, and then the full episode will be made available on YouTube for anyone who just wants to sit down and watch the whole thing. So you should be expecting some short form content as soon as we start making it, which is basically what we're doing right now. So that's fantastic. Also, it was brought to my attention that some viewers and some people on my team preferred to do the show in this setting instead of me doing from the home. So we're gonna try to transition back over here. What the good news is because now I have a home setup, if there's something happens, if we get snowed in, and speaking of snowed in, we're gonna have a special guest on the program named Winter Storm. You might remember them from last year. But if I get snowed in, or if I get sick, or my crew gets sick, I can still do a broadcast from home with the home setup. But it sounds like most of you and most of the crew would rather the show actually take place in the studio. And I'm okay to do that. If that's the thing that you guys want, then I'm super happy to do that. So be prepared for more short form content and more consistent uploads. My goal is to have a new upload, a new short form every 2 days or so, but we're trying out some new water, so be patient and stick with us. We appreciate it. Today I want to talk about briefly, we have a special guest coming up in the program. His name is Blake Cordell, or is it Cordell? I'll have to ask him when he's on the show. I'm pretty sure it's Cordell. But he actually wrote 2 books, and he is a police officer with a canine dog. And when I was talking to my team about, well, why are we having a police officer on the show? It's because, in my opinion, and maybe you disagree with this, if you are an author, if you've written a book, in my opinion, that's a form of art. And it's an art based on reality, which is great. And so the fact that we have local authors writing about their time on the police force is pretty remarkable. So we're going to talk about the book on the show during the interview that's later. But my initial comments for the books that Blake wrote are pretty spectacular. He wrote a children's book about daycare with some illustrations, and that was just a lovely book. And we'll bring it out during the interview, and we'll show you some pictures and stuff. But Blake is a really good writer. I really liked his book about childcare, which is the children's book that he wrote. But of course, the primary book that we're going to talk about the most is he wrote a series of stories, personal experiences, him and his friends, about being a canine police officer. And we're really excited to have him on the program, and he's gonna let you know what it's all about. But I was reading this book, and I'm telling you, I was blown away. The writing was fluid, the stories were captivating. I really felt like I was seeing the stories through Blake's eyes. So it was really incredible to read these stories from this book and to know the author personally. I'm quite certain that most of us don't know the authors personally of the books that we're reading. I read some books over the winter break too, but I've never met any of those authors. So to have somebody that I know personally, that I've actually known since high school, write these fantastic books, and I can't wait to pitch on the program, you really got to read these books. If you're interested in reading, or especially reading about police or about childcare, check out these books, and we'll talk more about it on the program. But man, Blake is such a good writer, and I really enjoyed those books. So once we get them up during the interview, please consider going to Amazon, purchasing your copy, and get that on your bookshelf and take a look at that. Blake is a really fantastic author, so good job, Blake. And my last bit to review here, really, this is this is a little bit unorthodox because I've reviewed movies and like audiobooks and newspaper reviews, but for the first time, I'm going to review a video game. What? A video game? This is an arts, music, and entertainment nonprofit. My lovely wife, Missy, she kind of had a rough year this year, and I wanted to, well, not this year, but last year, and I wanted to do something extra special for her, so I summoned up the funds and I grabbed her a PS5 and got her Hogwarts Legacy. And let me tell you something about this game. I was actually kind of impressed. I haven't played it myself, but I've been watching Missy play for about 300 hours now, which is it's a good amount of time to play a video game, in my opinion. Consider that the Super Nintendo games, if you got 20 hours out of a Super Nintendo game, you got lucky. But Hogwarts Legacy, I will tell you, obviously Harry Potter is not involved. Spoiler alert. But it's cool because it takes place before any of that stuff. So we're not like, Harry Potter had an adventure, Gryffindor wins. We're not. No, it's all about just the school. And if you've never played this game called Fable, an old game from the original Xbox, it's very Fable-esque. It's just kind of a walk around and explore and talk to people game. It's not really about the difficulty of the experience, like the Dark Souls games, for example, even though there's elements of the Soulsborne games in it, especially the battle mechanics. But just watching my wife just run around as a wizard, pointing her wand at stuff and making stuff float and sending fireballs and glacial blasts and all kinds. It's really kind of fun to watch. I am actually, and I don't know if I'm right about this or not, but a lot of the voice acting sounds like AI generated, but it's like obviously really good AI, because the thousands of hours of speaking some of these characters do, it just seems unfathomable. But it's all spot on. Great graphics, good gameplay, decent story, engaging content. Missy likes it. So in my opinion, that makes the game great. So Hogwarts Legacy, I don't think it matters what platform you play it on, but if you are a fan of just casting spells, and my favorite part that I forgot to add is, I didn't hear any swearing, no naughty stuff, so kids could play this game and have a great time. And I'm really into that stuff. That there's too much filth in the world as it is. So I'm a big fan of stuff that kids can play and then enjoy without their brains being polluted by nonsense. Again, I play games that people in their 30s play, although I'm not a big fan of like the Grand Theft Auto stuff. But if you've got a kid, you got young teenagers, even maybe like a 3rd or 4th grader at home, Hogwarts Legacy, is good for that age group. So please consider checking that out today. And that's all we have for our reviews.
Hey, check this out.
Now, I hope you're prepared for some exciting news because my good friend Stacy Atwell-Keister, her choir is going to be singing in Eugene. Let me read this to you real quick. This is from the News Review, which I don't have a membership for, so I kind of have just kind of a synopsis here. Fremont Middle School Choir will be heading to Oregon Music Education Association's annual conference to perform during a concert hour January 12th in the Bell Hall at University of Oregon. And I've played in Bell Hall quite a bit. Percussion concerts can be pretty loud and obnoxious in that hall, but choirs, pianos, it's going to be beautiful. I actually wish I could be there. That's going to be happening in a couple days from now. Let me keep reading to you. Stacy Atwell-Keister, the drama and choir teacher at Fremont, said this is the first time they have applied for and attended this event. So this is a bunch of firsts. She believes that they are the first school from Roseburg to be invited to perform at the conferences. This is a big deal. Now, for those of you who don't know, the OMEA, the Oregon Music Education Association, every single year they have this gigantic, everybody from Oregon comes to Eugene, from Beaverton, from Portland, from the southern cities, west, east coast. There's not really an East Coast in Oregon, is there? But having all of these musical groups from all over the state come to the OMEA conference, and usually I go to these conferences to just kind of sit in special clinics and learn general music techniques or elementary music techniques or high school band or choir or orchestra techniques and all that stuff. But sometimes I will actually go and listen to the recordings myself. When I was attending the University of Oregon, because I was an education student, they often made us go and volunteer. So I found myself bringing water to directors, managing traffic, helping students figure out where to go, getting students back on the bus, keeping the schedules. So I'm very familiar with OMEA. I just haven't been in a while. I want to congratulate personally Stacy Atwell-Keister's accomplishments and her Fremont choir. And I've heard the Fremont choir sing. This is going to be a trip for them and a trip for the audience, I'm telling you. The Fremont choir is a fantastic choir, great voices, great balance, great sound. And if you've not seen, the Fremont choir actually sings in an earlier episode where we recorded not the All-State, but the honor choirs. Now, remember the honor choir from a few episodes ago where the kids are all singing? Well, the Fremont choir takes the stage in there too and sings for a few minutes. So please, if you've not heard the Fremont choir sing, go to the earlier episode that has the choir and RHS band. Listen to the Fremont choir. And if you have time and if you know the choir, go to Bell Hall at the U of O and listen to this group sing. You will not regret your decision hearing the Fremont Middle School Choir. Congratulations, all of you.
And now our feature presentation.
It is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome to the program Officer Blake Cordell. Officer, welcome to the program.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Now, this is kind of fascinating because not only do we have a police officer with a K-9 unit, and you're probably wondering, why a police officer? What does it have to do with arts and entertainment? Well, we're really here to talk about Officer Cordell's books that he wrote. And I have never had an author on the program, and the fact that we have a local author here in Douglas County talking about relevant stuff is really quite fascinating. But for the audience who doesn't know, Officer Cordell, just because it's your first time on the show and won't be your last time, I hope, is there anything about yourself that you want the audience to know? Anything fun or interesting? So, because sometimes when people see police officers, they immediately go, "Oh, I better start behaving." But just to kind of lighten the mood, what's something about yourself you want the audience to know about being a police officer?
About being a police officer, so it's an adventure every day. So when I was trying to decide on a career when I was younger, part of the influence was from my dad, who was a police officer in Anchorage, Alaska. But the other part was that I knew that I didn't want to be stuck in one place all day. So I wanted everything to be different, never know what to expect. And being a police officer is absolutely that every single day. Never know what's going to happen next. So
Right, absolutely. And it's funny because you and I actually know each other. For the audience who doesn't know, where did you and I meet and how long ago?
Man, it's been probably 16 or 18 years ago. We met in high school.
Yep.
And we were in drumline and band together. And one thing I'll say about Colin is that even from when I first met him, one of the most naturally talented musicians and percussionists I've ever seen in my life. And he's one that also introduced me to Primus, and I still listen to you today.
Thank you, officer. I really appreciate that. No, I've always enjoyed Blake's company. and the fact that we were able to reconnect after so many years. And actually, I'll tell the audience this story if you're okay with that. Mr. Cordell here was one of the primary reasons I went into the Marine Corps. I've talked about it on the show at great length, and Officer Cordell would talk to me about what boot camp was like. I believe your father or sister was in the Marines?
Both, yeah.
Both. So there you go. So Blake telling me about the Marine Corps actually inspired me to go pursue the idea. And I was teaching drumline, and the recruiter came out, and once I decided to sign the dotted line, Officer Cordell gave me a lot of good advice. He said, don't do this, make sure you do this, they're gonna do this, it's gonna be like this. And the funny thing is, he was completely right about all of it, which is fantastic. Yeah. But sir, you didn't join the Marines, correct?
Correct.
Okay, but you were for the audience, can you tell them, you joined the military, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Which branch, and what was your job in that branch?
Ended up in the Army Reserve. So what happened is I was in Portland going to college, and I passed the Marine Corps' flight tests and all that, but the modern world runs on money. I was out of money, and I had an offer from police department in my hometown.
Nice. Okay.
And that was always my end goal anyway. So I took advantage of that opportunity, and it was fantastic for me in my life. It turned out to be the best decision. And I still had the dream of joining the military though. So I finished off my college degree, my bachelor's, because I was already most of the way there. Ended up joining the Army Reserve as a commissioned officer. So I kind of got to have my cake and eat it too. Ended up doing both military and policing at the same time.
And you're still in the reserve, correct? Or are you done with that now?
I'm in the inactive reserve. I recently got out of the active reserve side of it, but I still have a few more months in the inactive reserve.
And what rank are you? I'm curious.
I was first lieutenant when I got out after, but I was promoted to captain in the IR. So. And
how often do you go off and do military stuff, or are you basically all done with that now, or how often were you going off and doing that?
I was basically all done with. I'm all done with it now. Unless something crazy happens. But as a reservist, my obligation was 1 weekend a month, and then an annual training that would go from 2 weeks to 30 days. But what's neat about the reserve is, if anybody's considering it, there's active reserve where they help run a unit and stuff like that, but there's also training opportunities and deployment opportunities for reservists as well. So,
would you say that your Army experience really prepared you for the police officer role?
It did at an administrative level.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
Policing and the military were far different. I thought there'd be more crossover, but I was actually quite surprised that there was not as much crossover as I thought there would be.
Gotcha.
But as an officer, I got the training and experience of administrative work, managing people, resources, money, and I found that to be extremely valuable.
Yes.
So.
And you're still doing administrative stuff, or are you mostly on the streets, prowling the towns, looking for bad guys?
With my current police department, I'm a grunt. I just go out and catch bad guys. So.
Yeah, actually, speaking of which, I didn't want to ignore you, little friend. Nike, welcome to the program. Hey, audience, this is Nike, and Nike is our canine. And Nike, I just want to ask you a few questions, if that's okay with you.
I can answer for me. Doesn't speak English.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to be so insensitive. Actually, you know what? Fine. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, how long have you two been a team for?
About 5 years now. About 5.5 years.
And your book explains it very clearly, but I don't want to ruin the book for the audience. I do really encourage the audience to go to Amazon, literally pause this video, and you look how thick this book is. There's at least 80 stories in here, which I found quite fascinating as I was reading through this. But it says it in here clearly why, but please, for the audience, why did you want to be a canine police officer? Why were you driven to that? I'm really curious.
Yeah, so my dad was a canine officer in Anchorage, Alaska, and we got to grow up with his dog, Reddy, and it was fantastic being around the dog and being around my dad with the dog. And when I became a police officer myself, our local police department started a program. So that was a golden opportunity for me.
Yep.
And I always want to be in the middle of the action, up at the front of everything. And with the dog, that was my excuse. But I like catching bad guys. That's what I do.
Yes.
And the dog is one of the best tools for that. There you go.
Oh, and yes, and so we're gonna keep the camera rolling while Nike does this thing because we want the audience to see what Nike is all about. And I want. Oh, and why Nike? Did you name Did you name him Nike, or did someone else? Or
so we imported Nike from the Netherlands.
Oh.
And
cool.
his breeder gave him that name. And by the time I got Nike, you can change the name of a police dog from when you get them. There's nothing wrong with that. I just I didn't, and maybe I should have done something cooler. But to everybody, he was already Nike, and what's awesome about our community is that there's a lot of buy-in from people. So there's a canine group that takes donations, the Friends of the Umpqua Valley Police Canine programs, and a lot of folks in the community already knew him as Nike, so I didn't want to change his name and ruin that recognition, because to me he's my dog. He works with me and all that stuff, but there's so much buy-in from the community that I think everybody kind of owns a little bit of them.
Right. So. This may also come off as kind of a strange question, but if you could guess, how many missions has Nike been on with you? Maybe hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe 10?
That's one thing I've been bad at keeping track of overall, but we've probably captured anywhere between 70 and 80 suspects over the years. That's with us actually catching them. So. The way we keep our statistics, though, is that if the canine team influenced a capture, so let's say somebody runs from a car, and I say, hey, I've got the police dog, I'm on the way. So they set up a perimeter. And I start searching, but the bad guy tries to run out of the perimeter, and a perimeter guy catches him. For our statistics, we count that as a capture because we influence that.
Yes.
If we wouldn't have been there, the perimeter unit wouldn't have been there, therefore the bad guy wouldn't have been caught. But I don't include those in the actual captures that him and I have found back.
There is a story in your book where you were trying to stage a capture and the suspect kind of either saw you or felt your presence and darted, and you had to make a decision, do I let Nike go after or not? The guy goes around the corner and you're like, well, what you'd found out is if Nike had gone, he would have jumped over a cliff and gotten seriously injured. So you even mentioned that Nike kind of has a will of his own consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's really incredible. And I really didn't know that kind of stuff. Actually, kind of a follow-up question now. German Shepherds are very popular sidekick dogs, especially. I mean, I think German Shepherds were a part of Osama bin Laden's capture and killing, from what I understand. But is that the breed that you have, or is it a different breed?
So what Nike is he's actually unique, almost one of a kind. So he's half Belgian Malinois and half Staffordshire Terrier. So the breeder is a big KNPV guy. So KNPV,
you got it.
He's going to do that. So KNPV is a dog sport. So this guy mixed a couple of his really good dogs, try to get certain traits, and Nike wasn't his champion dog, so he exported him to us. And but Malinois are very popular. The reason being is that they're very high energy. They will work until they physically cannot anymore. They're also hyper intelligent and maybe not aggressive, but they possess a lot of fortitude, I guess would be a better word. So they're hard to get to stop working. So in a German Shepherd, they're very methodical. So if you take like the example of a track, so Nike, when he tracks, he'll kind of track like this. He'll be up looking around, checking for scents for the bad guys. Whereas a German Shepherd, they're more likely to keep their nose on the ground, footstep to footstep, very methodical. They're also very intelligent. They're both breeds make excellent police dogs.
Nice.
They have different traits that, depending on what the department wants, they get. So we ended up with Nike as a Malinois because when we purchased him, we told the kennel, we want the absolute best dog. These are the things that we want. We don't care the breed. Find the dog that checks these boxes and make sure he's the best one.
And just because I'm curious, what kind of boxes are you looking to check? What kind of skill sets are you looking for? Or does Nike, is it Nike or Nike?
Either way.
Either one?
Yeah.
So what are Nike's skill sets? What does he specialize in? Or is it just kind of general, like looking for certain scents or finding contraband? I heard a story the other day, maybe you were the part of this, is they seized like 100 pounds of meth from a vehicle at a random traffic stop. I think I read that like yesterday.
Yeah, so There's typically two kinds of dogs that the police employ most commonly. So there's the patrol dog, which is what Nike is, and then there's a drug dog. There's also other more specialized dogs, bombs. These days for electronics, like electronic storage devices.
Right.
But the two most common that you'll see, especially in a local police department, patrol and drugs. So
Okay.
Nike, his foundation is in scent work. So he was trained how to find articles that could be translated over into drug work or bomb work.
Okay.
And so what that has done for him in his career is that it's made him exceptional at finding articles. So something that smells like the suspect.
Okay.
So he's found drugs, but only because they smelled like the bad guy, not because they smelled like drugs.
Ah, okay. That makes
but
sense.
He's also extremely good at area searches. So if we know that the bad guy is in this area somewhere, but we're not sure exactly where we could start a track, I would take Nike out there and he would find the scent of the bad guy and get into what's called the scent cone. And then he's excellent at following that up to actually where the bad guy is. So
Nice.
he's a very good tracker as well. But what's neat about him is that if we're tracking and then he smells the bad guy, he's very good at transitioning into that area search type thing.
Gotcha.
Whereas a German Shepherd who's trained in like Schützen, they're more the footstep to footstep trackers and less, I guess, energetic, more directed energy.
Okay.
Whereas Nike, if he gets a scent of the bad guy, his head's up and he's looking for that guy because he wants the bad guy more.
And you've had Nike for 5 years, but how old is Nike?
He's about 7 now.
Okay, so still pretty young. And what's the average lifespan of this breed?
So lifespan can go up to 15 years. So with police dogs, they train hard, they work hard, very active lifestyles. We may not get 15 years of life out of him,
Sure.
but a working life, the minimum we tend to expect is 9 to 10 years.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do police dogs retire? And if they do, what do they do? They just kind of go with an owner or go off and do whatever? Or?
Right. So 90% of the time they retire with the handler that had the dog.
Gotcha.
So there are, maybe in the military has their dog programs a little differently. Those dogs retire and they're usually adopted by somebody who never handled them. Or if the handler is unable to keep the dog for some reason, maybe another member of the department will adopt them. But the vast majority of the time, the handler that had the dog, they retire with that handler.
Nice.
So.
And of course, we love Nike and we're happy to have you on the program, but I want to go back to you for a second, if that's
Sure.
okay. For now, when I see officers on video doing this stuff, I see they're always equipped with all of these items.
Yeah.
For the audience who may not know, would you mind giving us kind of a tour of your arsenal, or what would you call it, an assembly, or?
Yeah, just my duty gear is what I call it.
Duty gear, there you
So,
go.
and it's changed even from when I started to be a police officer. So
Right.
when I started a long time ago, there were no body cameras. It was just, we called them Sam Brown belts. You just had your belt with your gear on it.
Yep.
And a Crown Victoria police car. So,
Right.
so it's definitely changed, and more technology has been adopted, which is fantastic. So lighter, thinner body armor, more electronics. So this is a body camera. So a lot of videos you see like on the news or what have you were filmed with the body cameras.
Yep.
There's several different companies, but Taser makes this one, and they're fantastic. Have a work phone, and so I don't have to carry on like a digital camera. We have an app on the phone that automatically uploads it to evidence.com.
Nice.
And just other normal stuff. So an extra flashlight, pepper spray, extra magazines. It's called a e-collar, so it's a distance communication device with Nike. So in case I need to recall him or something like that, and he's too far away to hear me, this will reach out.
Cool.
So I got just a normal little flashlight thing for when I'm writing. Handcuffs, taser, radio. So a lot of it's kind of the classic police gear. We just carry it differently. So
Gotcha.
And then gun, obviously. Got gloves. Over here I have another magazine, and then a specialized bandage, essentially, that's really good at stopping bleeding.
Nice. Okay.
And then with my extra uniform, I can carry another bandage, essentially.
Your book talks at great length about you having to respond to situations that you were not prepared for example, almost having to become a paramedic in certain situations. Is there anything, now again, I don't want to get too grisly here, but is there a situation you feel comfortable sharing with the audience where you were really outside of your element or outside of your comfort zone where you had to respond? Maybe something that's not in the book, or is there a favorite story in the book that you think people should buy this book and read about?
I think the best example was actually the first story in the book.
Yep.
So responded to a stabbing, but it was the victim was catastrophically injured, in the abdomen.
Yep.
And just the feeling I felt when I stood there and looked at that injury, I didn't feel like I was equipped to handle that.
Yep.
So I did the best I could with the training I had.
Yep.
But that's one of the things that precipitated me getting more training experience on the medical side, because I did not like that feeling.
Just not sure what to do, and
Right.
I wouldn't know what to do. Even right now, I'd be like, oh, yeah,
Right.
no. So
Yep. Yeah, and I was there. I had the ability to help, but I didn't feel like I had the knowledge. Like looking back, I did the best I could, and it was okay. But now these days, I'm much better prepared. So if anybody's looking into anything of, I'm bored today, what should I read about?
yes.
Anything first responder type, first aid, always fantastic to know, because you never know when you're going to need it.
Now, what specifically inspired you to start writing, and when did you start? How long did it take you to compose all of this? What lit your fuse? What was like, I got to start writing this down. I got to do this. What inspired you to do that? I'm really curious about that.
So I've always been a big reader. So even as a kid, I'd read, a book a week, and that planted a little seed of maybe someday I could write a book. But I didn't know what to write about. Didn't know what people would find interesting, what I would find interesting enough to write about. And I grew up hearing my dad's police stories, and my mom always talked about wanting to write those down.
Yep.
But with life, it's just hard to do that stuff. So, one day that first story in there, that the stabbing story, affected me quite a lot.
Yeah.
And
That must be why you put it up front.
Right. Yep. So that was a catalyst of wanting to write stuff down. So it's first in the book, but it's also the first one that I wrote down.
Well, that grabbed me as a reader immediately. Because
Yeah.
you read your intro and I was like, okay, this guy can actually write. Like, it actually is good writing. It's descriptive, good language, non-redundant words. It flows. Like, it really flows, and I actually am experiencing what you experience. I actually see myself in your head through your eyes.
Yeah.
It's really quite gripping. No, man,
Absolutely.
I am telling you that if you are really interested in police stories, you need to go to Amazon right now. And I will ask you to pause the video twice and buy another copy. It would be really important, and it would be really supporting our community if you would support a local author. This is a really good book, Passing the Badge with Officer Blake Cordell. We are almost out of time, but there was one more thing I wanted to talk about briefly. Which I found this absolutely adorable. Hello, childcare, a child's first day in a new place. So we went from stab wounds and bleeding and dogs and bad guys to childcare. So what inspired this? I must know why the diversity of subjects. What's going on with that?
So my wife and I started childcare, and I wanted practice writing a book, essentially. So
Oh, cool.
what ended up happening is I released both at the same time, pretty much on the same day.
Nice.
But what was cool about that book is one of my friends was an immigrant from Ukraine. Her art is vivid and beautiful. And she has actually done some commissions for me and Nike. And this style is a little more approachable for a young person. But that was right along the, what do I know about? So,
And for me in the audience, can you pronounce her name for us?
yeah, Yulia Malakatina. So,
Nice.
And she has an Instagram that she's very active on. So if you want to follow her on Instagram, beautiful artist. She does vivid and vivacious, like pet illustrations.
And does she
commissions.
live
So-
in this area too? Is she okay? 'Cause
Yeah.
I didn't tell you this, but I'm actually kind of in the process of writing a teaching book.
Oh, cool.
And I was looking for someone to help me with artist depictions of the stuff I'm writing.
Yeah.
So maybe after we're done here, we can talk, because I mean, this is really good art, and it's really good context.
Yeah.
So, Officer Cordell, we are almost out of time. You are a fantastic author, and I love both of these books, and I really enjoy reading them. Is there anything that you want the audience to know about you? Is there a way, okay, yeah. So if somebody saw you with Nike, can they approach you? Are they allowed to talk
yeah.
to you? If somebody saw you, what are they allowed and not allowed to do? Just in case nobody knows.
Don't take his toys, as you can see.
Yeah, toys are important.
So he's a social butterfly. So
Oh, cool.
He's this big bad, police dog, catches bad guys, all that stuff. But he loves attention, and he loves children. So
Nice.
I actually take him into the child care all the time. The
Okay.
kids hang on him, love on him, pet him. He is so fantastic and social. So if you see us out there, say hi first of all. Give us a wave, and has his name on the car. So
Okay.
so definitely come up and say hi. Always ask. So if you see an officer with a police dog, ask if you can pet. And with him, you're always going to get a yes. One thing that's a big don't that some people keep doing, maybe on accident, is they bring their dogs around him.
Ooh.
So yeah,
Sounds like a bad idea.
it's a bad idea.
That sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah, because we teach these dogs that they're the #1 dog in the world. No other dog is as good as they are.
Yeah, it's probably
so
true.
that could be a problem. So if you ever see a police officer, police dog, keep your dog away, but definitely ask if you can pet the dog, and a lot of times they'll say yeah.
Your book talks about waving at officers because you don't know what they just saw.
Right.
Are officers really looking for that from civilians to actually wave and be friendly to them, or are they just kind of no, leave us alone, we're working?
Yeah, no, I mean waves are fantastic.
Okay.
So if we're out dealing with something, like I've had people come up and ask me for stickers, but there's something serious going on.
Right.
Try to gauge the situation. So, but a wave as you're driving by is fantastic. I love
Police
that.
officers are here to serve us, and they're here to keep us safe. And I think it's important that we do unto them as they do unto us. And I'm just going to say this, and I know this is kind of a touchy subject, but the news, especially within the last 5 years, seems to be this campaign against police officers. I've seen things like Back the Blue, which is kind of a reaction to Black Lives Matter, from what I understand. But the thing is, I think that is kind of a sketch discussion, because police officers are it's almost like being a teacher to some extent, where it's like you receive criticism for what you do no matter what you do. And I think we need to focus on the important thing. The police officers are here to keep us safe and take care of us and get the bad guys.
Yep.
Police are not out for blood and not out to harm innocent people, at least not from what I've seen. And based on Officer Cordell's testimony here, I trust him and the entire police force in Douglas County to take care of its citizens. Officer, thank you so much for being on the program. I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's nice to see you again after all these
you too.
years.
And one other thing, I
of
got
course.
something for you.
We weren't gonna.
We can do that too, but
Yeah.
I'm working on a new book series. So, and it's the working title is Callahan's Men, but it's a book about a police officer who wins the lottery. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
And with that, he starts essentially a mercenary company.
Nice.
So
it's a fiction book.
Yes. Yep,
Oh,
this is
that'll be
fiction.
fun. Yeah, and you'll let me know when that comes out, right?
Of course. Yep.
And of course, my wife would be furious if we didn't get an autograph from yourself and
absolutely.
Mr. Nike, of course. So, and we've got it looks like you got a system here. So we can do the front page.
In the book, there's a story where Nike is engaged with the suspect, and actually make my own little outing tools that I use to push his tongue down. I lost that during the struggle. Couldn't find it, so I used this pen to push down on Nike's tongue and take him off the bite. And Nike bit the pen on accident. So this is that legendary pen.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm gonna sign it for you.
Wow, that's so wonderful. And we really appreciate this, officer. I mean, we look forward to having more authors on this show, and hopefully maybe even more police officers. I mean, especially if you're an artist or a musician or an entertainer. I'm sure some of your fellow officers are comedians or dancers or maybe also authors. So please keep in touch with us, and we want to hear more about what you're up to.
Absolutely.
And Nike's is he gonna paw it too? Is that true?
He is.
That's gonna be great.
So, and he's gotten used to it by now.
Right.
So.
Yeah, very, very famous. Very famous Nike.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's funny because now my reticular activator has been activated. So now I'm going to be driving around looking for our canine ally, taking care of stuff. It's going to be fantastic. Ooh, there he is.
What's neat is he is so patient with stuff. Like if I start doing something like this, he's just kind of like, oh, this is normal.
Wish my cats were that patient. My cats start screeching and scrapping no matter what's going on.
There it is.
Beautiful. Take a look at that. Ladies and gentlemen, Officer Cordell, and really appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that seems to be all the time we have left for today. Tune in next week for another great episode of the WITZ, the WITZ, brought to you by the Douglas County Music Association and so many other great sponsors. Again, if you're willing to donate now, you can send a check to 1622 Northeast Vine Street at Roseburg, Oregon 97470, or you can go to our Venmo at OregonDCMA. We can't wait to hear from you. That's all the time we have. Until next time, bye everyone.